This program is a really great workplace wellness program because we think about how we spend a lot of time with our colleagues and our coworkers. Also, teams can form with family members. They don't have to live in the state. You can be family members from different counties. You can be different states, different countries, and also neighbors or friends, anyone that you would like to interact with on a regular basis because you can encourage and support each other. And I do want to mention, too, when we talk about reporting, it's minutes of activity or steps, and our online system converts those into miles.
Now in its 25th year, K-State Research and Extension's Walk Kansas program continues to help thousands of participants meet or exceed the physical activity guidelines for Americans recommendations. This year's event runs from March 30th to May 24th, with registration beginning on March 4th. On today's Sound Living, how walking can improve your health. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman. Walk Kansas State Leader and Northeast Area Family and Consumer Sciences Specialist Sharolyn Jackson discusses how this long-running 8-week health and wellness program benefits participants. Sharolyn, the 25th year of Walk Kansas getting started soon, and as a result, we want to talk about some of the basics, but we also want to cover some of the things that are new this year. One of the things you wanted to focus on, first off, is just some of the webinars that go along with Walk Kansas.
That's right. For the last several years, we've been offering some webinars for our participants, and those have been really well attended and helpful, I believe. And so our webinars this year, we have one at the beginning that looks at just heart disease in general, but also specifically how diabetes and prediabetes can impact your heart. And so that's a risk factor for all of us as we age, something to know. Also, last year we offered one on foot care and shoe selection, mostly on selecting shoes, which was very popular. So we're going to look at foot care this year. Our feet are so important for walking and everything that we do to stay physically active. So some basic foot care and also look at diabetes foot care. We have another one on some resistance exercises you can do, strengthening exercises. And then we're going to wrap up the webinars, bringing back a focus from previous years on the blue zones, which really ties this all together. And the blue zones are those communities around the world, those little pockets where people live that they are living longer and predominantly healthier lives, and what those secrets are. What are those Power 9, as they describe them, that help them achieve this longevity and healthy lifestyle?
That's kind of the med versus meds.
A little bit, because part of it is healthy eating, but it's a lot more than that. So I'm just going to pique your interest so that you come join us and learn more about the lifestyle of the folks in the blue zones. They have the highest percentage of centenarians in those communities that are living longer, but also very, very productive and healthy lives.
You mentioned lifestyle, and really the lifestyle changes that take place during Walk Kansas is something that is not only beneficial to your health, but can also help cut healthcare costs.
Definitely. And like I had said, this year we're going to have a bit of a focus on prevention and also management of diabetes, but that is a chronic disease that so many people were all at risk for. But the CDC found that lifestyle changes that focus on weight loss and physical activity can save up to $2,000 per person per year in healthcare costs. And this is due to reduced medical visits, lower prescription drug use. And I think you could also wrap into that, even though it's not a dollar amount, but increased productivity and more energy. And so everything just kind of all connects.
Let's go back and cover some of the basics. When we look at Walk Kansas, the goal is primarily to just be active.
That's right. Our basic goal is for people to meet the minimum guidelines for physical activity, and that's 150 minutes of moderate activity per week, or 30 minutes per day, 5 days per week is what it amounts to. And we're really trying to getting into that consistency habit where you're getting regular physical activity, not just all at one time and then in a rest state for the rest of the week, but really focusing on getting some activity on a regular basis. So those are the minimum guidelines for physical activity. That's what our program's based on. We also ask participants to track how many fruits and vegetables they're eating, because that also factors into just a healthy lifestyle. But we also know that most people aren't getting near enough. A lot of it is that when you are being asked to write it down and to track it, you realize, and people have mentioned this frequently in their evaluations at the end of the program, I didn't realize that I wasn't eating very many fruits and vegetables. Or another comment has been, now I know I have to start at breakfast with getting some fruits and veggies because otherwise I can't get enough in throughout the day. But just to be more intentional by writing it down or logging on the system what you're eating helps people realize, hey, I can do better.
We're also tracking water consumption as well.
Right. And the fruits and the vegetables and water are optional if they want to track it. But in our online system, they can plug that in and really getting people to move toward water as a source of hydration. So that's another focus.
It's kind of overlooked, isn't it, the fact that it seems like it's something that's so simple, but we often don't drink nearly enough.
That's right. It's just essential. It's essential to life.
Let's talk about the system and how it's set up. You need to come up with a team. You need to come up with a captain for the team. How does all that work?
You have the option of going as part of a team, or you can go solo. We still have the solo option available. If you want to just go on a trail by yourself, we have a trail for that. These are virtual trails, I will clarify. And our teams are ideally 6 people on a team. You have to have at least 4. And we can help you if you've got that 7th person that you just really want to add. But 6 people is what you're shooting for. It's based on when we started Walk Kansas that we were walking across the state. And we found that in 8 weeks' time, 6 people meeting the minimum guidelines could collectively and virtually walk across the state of Kansas, approximately 423 miles. So that's how these are based. And so we have other trails as well. Let's say your team decides we want to work a little bit harder than that. We want to get a little bit more physical activity. And so we have other trails that they can choose from. We have the minimum guidelines trail is the 8 Wonders of Kansas trail. So that's what you'll discover on your virtual trek around the state. The next one, you get about a little over 3 hours of activity per person per week, and that's along U.S. Route 56. It actually starts in New Mexico, that trail does, and then pretty soon you're in Kansas. Doesn't take too long and goes across the state along Route 56. We have another one called Cross Country that goes from the northeast part of the state to the southeast corner, and that requires 4 hours of activity per person per week. And then Little Balkans, which is down in the southeast part of the state, is our longest trail, and it goes from Little Balkans to Nicodemus, and that's about 6 hours per person.
And you're able to track yourself along the route?
Mm-hmm. And there are waypoints along the way. So as your team progresses through, and as you as an individual on our Purple Power Trail, you'll go through waypoints that you unlock, and then you can click on those in the system, and you'll get a little bit of history, or perhaps it's not necessarily historical, but talks about a cool place to visit in Kansas. And then on our Purple Power Trail, you also get some health tips along the way. This program is a really great workplace wellness program because we think about how we spend a lot of time with our colleagues and our coworkers. And so it's fun to see a lot of times the teams at work come up with some fun names. But also teams can form with family members. They don't have to live in the state. You can be family members from different counties. You can be different states, different countries. And also neighbors or friends, anyone that you would like to interact with on a regular basis, because you can encourage and support each other. And I do want to mention, too, when we talk about reporting, it's minutes of activity or steps, and our online system converts those into miles for you. So you report steps or minutes. Physical activity guidelines are in minutes. That's why we recommend that. But a lot of people wear the step counters, too, so that also works for us. And then if you perform vigorous activity, so moderate's where you can carry on a conversation just barely, but you can't sing. Vigorous, you can say a word or two, and that's about it. So if you're doing some vigorous activity, you can report that as well and double the amount of time that you spend doing the vigorous activity. I also want to mention that we have a weekly newsletter that goes out, which gives you the details about the webinars and also is a way for us to connect with our participants weekly. We have close to 5,000 people across the state that typically participate in Walk Kansas, so it's kind of fun to think that you're part of this great effort for about 8 weeks here in the spring to get healthier. And so we do have the newsletter that includes tips for different types of physical activity, maybe a stretching or resistance exercise that you can do, some health tips, and also a nutrition and a healthy recipe each week.
In addition to the minutes, they're also reporting then what they might do in terms of strengthening exercises?
Yes, and the physical activity guidelines suggest and recommend that you do strength training exercises at least 2 days per week with a day of rest in between for those muscles that you work. And so we just simply have there a place you can check if you did strengthening exercises that day, and then you can see how you're doing if you're getting those 2 days in a week.
I mentioned this is the 25th year, and I imagine that there are probably have been some people who have been doing this for 25 years. Do you know of any?
I think there probably are. I don't specifically know of any just because, there's a lot of people involved in the program. But if you are one of those folks that's been doing it for 25 years, please do contact your local extension agent or contact me. It'd be great to know who those folks are, and we can give them a shout out during the program.
Yeah, because we know you're not the only one.
Yeah. Yes, true.
I like the workplace aspect because it's not only a lot of this you're not necessarily teaming up and walking together, but something that you can talk around the water cooler, something that you can talk about on a Monday morning, that this is what I did this weekend, this is how I got my activity. So it really is kind of a bonding aspect too.
It is, and we hope, I sure hope there's a spillover of maybe what's prompted someone to think about something differently from the newsletter, what have you, but to start looking at what kind of snacks do you put out at your workplace? How can you make those more healthful? What kind of things can you put into place where you work that just nudges you to be a little bit healthier on a regular basis? So that's what we're hoping for.
I know the one thing I've learned from this is that I always park about as far away from a door as I can, no matter where I'm shopping. I'm not the guy that's going to wait for the spot right next to the
Good
door.
For you.
I will park as far away as possible because you do get those extra steps.
Right.
And sometimes we don't get those at work like we used to, so we have to kind of invent other ways to get those steps.
That's right. And we also encourage that you have some way to nudge you to move. Like ideally every 30 minutes or at least every hour where you stand up, you walk around a little bit. So that's also incorporated into our tips.
You mentioned the chronic conditions earlier and the fact that we're seeing an increase in some of those. This is a way to make some of those changes that can really pay off over time. And it's something that you can start with because if you just do the walking, that is about the easiest thing you can do. There's no cost involved. You just have to get outside and do a little bit of maybe walk faster than you normally would. But for the most part, it's just taking a stroll.
Right. And even to push yourself to get little bursts of activity. So you're walking and then for maybe 30 seconds, you'll walk as fast as you can. Then go back to walking at a regular pace. Those are little things you can do that really have cumulative effects toward a more positive health outcome for you.
You mentioned that we'll start to see some results, and I think a lot of those, as you mentioned, really just that increase in energy and the fact that you want to do it, you miss when you don't do it.
Exactly. Once you form a habit, it's like something that you just, like brushing your teeth. You just know that every day you need to get a little bit of activity. So that's where doing that consistently with intention for several weeks, it starts to become part of your routine. That's what we're hoping for.
The educational part of this is also something that a lot of people benefit from and probably find a place that they can get information that maybe they weren't getting from somewhere else.
Right. And we include lots of links to other resources, other information in our newsletters. And so hopefully just giving people a place to go for some solid health recommendations that they can incorporate.
The website has all of the information that they need, but they can also get some information from some of the extension offices as well.
Yes, we'll have registration information posted once registration opens on our website, www.walkkansas.org, and then also your local extension office. We do have a group this year that's called the Kansas State Steppers Group, which is going to be pulling together the counties or local communities where Walk Kansas is not offered through their extension office. And so there's a place for everybody to be part of a group in Walk Kansas this year.
One other thing that I forgot to mention is the fact that there is a Shop Walk Kansas and there's also a Walk Kansas app.
There is. The app is where you can track your minutes and your activity and your fruits and veggies and so on. And then Shop Walk Kansas is where you can purchase T-shirts. We have a new cool hooded T-shirt and sweatshirts and caps and all kind of fun things.
This is probably the best $10 you will spend. You'll get benefits out of this $10.
That $10, the apparel items, those are all extra. You order those separate. But yes, it's a pretty good return on your investment for $10.
That's Walk Kansas State Leader and Northeast Area Family and Consumer Sciences Specialist Sharolyn Jackson. This year's event runs from March 30th to May 24th. Registration for teams and solo participants begins on March 4th. To learn more, go to walkkansas.org. That's walkkansas.org. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wickman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.